Hello, namaskar, and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Prashant Mavani. I hope you all are doing good. Today is 20th October. It's a Saturday. We don't have that many articles in terms of quantity, but the most important article of the week or of the day is this one, L'Affaire Khashoggi. It's about Jamal, but it's a totally different article. It's more about diplomacy, right? We are going to learn so many things about diplomatic world or diplomacy. So very interesting article, this one. Then we have this Taliban surge. This one is about Jammu and Kashmir. And Keep the Peace is about this Sabrimala temple. So let's quickly crack on. But before that, let me inform all of you that best faculties of our nation have designed our pen drive and tablet courses for various different exams. To find out more about it, do check out StudyIQ.com. You can download the PDF of today's lecture from my FB page and Twitter handle. Dear friends, L'Affaire Khashoggi is about pen is mightier than sword, and this is of course very right thing. I am just going to step out of this topic and I'm going to add two things here, right? Just one thing. This will help you a lot, I believe. It will give you a new way of thinking. That's what I think. Right, so it's about speech, right? So read this line here first. It is the written word, even more than the spoken one, that scares authoritarian regime. And we know that MBS, that is Mohammed bin Salman or Saudi Arabia, is an authoritarian regime. There is no doubt about it. Now, when it comes to speech, right, this is something that you don't find in this article, but I would like to add this thing here, that speech has always worked for bringing a change in society. Particularly, I personally feel that when you need a sudden kick, that immediate kick or a boost, or a sort of starting a revolution, right? It has always worked. A speech, right? Leaders have always delivered various different speeches, and this has worked. The more influential your speech is, the better result you will get. But when it comes to authoritarian regime, right? If you want to disturb the peace in authoritarian regime, then it's not your speech, all right? It is more your written words that will create a sort of disturbance. But the thing is, authoritarian, the reason why we term them authoritarian is because they are going to react. People who are in this power position, they are going to react, and that's what they have done with this Jamal. Now let me tell you one more thing, that Jamal was not always critical, was not always negative when it comes to MBS. He has also appreciated this, applauded and appreciated this changes or reforms, some positive reforms introduced by MBS, that is like giving permission to Saudi ladies to drive, which was something banned since time immemorial. So there was never a system like this for women to drive, but MBS introduced this thing, and this was appreciated by Jamal. But Jamal has also wrote things that are not that sweet for the eyes of authoritarian regime of MBS. He wrote about this Yemen war. He wrote about these people who are suffering in Yemen, and this Iran and Saudi Arabia's power tussle. Because of this thing, other countries and innocent people are suffering. And this is something that I would like you guys to understand here, right? Very practical. We have to be very practical here. We have to keep religion on one side, because religion is something that is more visible. If I'm carrying a tika or a skull cap or a cross, right, then you will easily identify. It's like a uniform. If I'm wearing a uniform of a company or maybe a police uniform or a navy uniform, then the first thing that you will observe, right, your mind will observe in microsecond is which organization I represent. In the same way, right, it's your dressing, but there are so many things, right, basically that will define your identity. But things that are visible are not always, are not always what they look like. There is also a thing called mirage, isn't it? And mirage is something that looks bit different, but it is altogether a different thing. So without confusing you any further, right, let me tell you, you have two teams here. One is called Team Saudi and the other one is called Iran. They claim, right, I'm using the word here, claim. They claim that they are working for, the Saudi regime is claiming that they are working for the betterment of Sunni Muslims, and Iran team is claiming that they are working for the betterment of Shia Muslims. And now I will leave it on you guys to think whether they are or they are not. I don't want to step into, I'm not afraid, right, let me tell you, but I don't want to hurt anyone's sentiments here. But the thing that I know for sure is that it's not the religion, right? Religion is more visible thing. It's not the religion that is creating all these troubles here, right? It is more about political dominance. It is more about who is going to rule this part of the world. When I said this part of the world, I'm talking about West Asia here, right? So it's about who is going to rule West Asia, who is going to be more superior here, whose oil will go first, in petrol pumps and in cars and in various different countries. So it's more about economical dominance. It's more about political dominance. It's more about dominating this whole region. So for that, if you have to deploy a religion, do it. If you have to deploy some sort of supporting some terror organizations, go for it, right? Leave no stone unturned. To make sure that you are winning here. That's what both these nations, right? Both these teams, that's what they are doing. They are playing with some very dirty tools in their hands. So we know the story of Jamal, right? He is killed now, and we find a sort of tokenism as well. And this is the most important portion here where the film starts, I can say. So tokenism is, this is something that we find in reaction. Now, the lady on your screen, she is IMF chief, International Monetary Fund's chief. She has decided to skip this Davos in desert. There was going to be a meeting, right? Financial, business related, economic related conference was going to take place in this desert region of Saudi Arabia. It's just a saying that desert, but it was going to take place in Saudi Arabia. But now this thing has been cancelled by IMF chief. Yesterday we were talking about France, UK representatives and businessmen or businesswomen from France and UK. They have also decided to skip this sort of meetings that are taking place in Saudi Arabia. But this sort of reactions are just tokens, because first of all, we find at least reactions are coming from developed countries. Developing nations, you don't find that much opposition as far as this act of murder of Jamal is concerned. The other thing is we have this Bretton Woods institutions, this IMF and World Bank, after this World War II. This Bretton Woods meeting took place, monetary conference took place, and then we saw this birth of World Bank and IMF and other organizations, and because of this thing, then they are also termed as Bretton Woods. So for a very long period of time, USA has been dominating this Bretton Woods, and it's not just USA, there are other countries who are supplying money to this Bretton Woods, and Saudi Arabia is one of the countries because as far as money is concerned, it has been selling oil for a very long period of time now, and Saudi Arabia, the government at least, it is having huge amount of money. So Bretton Woods institutions, they will still need Saudi funding, and for that they can go soft as the time passes. And one thing that I would like you guys to take away from this discussion, right, of this thing will stay and should stay with you guys forever, right? Remember always that when it comes to foreign policy, you will forget everything, maybe everything that we have discussed so far, but one thing that you have to keep in your mind is this thing, that when it comes to foreign policy, it is all about promoting national interest, and that sentiment should have no place in it at all. It's a very harsh word of diplomacy. When it comes to national interest, you give top priority to national interest rather than sentiment. On sentimental side, on emotional side, on humanitarian side, the whole nation, I believe, right, our nation is against this murder of Jamal. But when it comes to national interest, we have to calculate how much important Saudi Arabia is for us, right? Do we need to oppose Saudi Arabia or not? If we go through our constitution, our humanitarian approach, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, there are so many things, right? If we go through it, then we find that yes, we should oppose this sort of things, right? If we go back in the past as well, then we find that in our country as well, we have never, in Ramayana, in Mahabharata, in so many various different films as well, like in film called 300, you find the scene that Leonidas is kicking that messenger in that deep well. So the thing is, you never kill a messenger, that has always been. So diplomatic, limitations, or you can say not limitations, but diplomatic relations And particularly after this formal Vienna Convention, it has always been respected, but that does not mean that you misuse it. But then as well, national interest is the top priority for any country. We find Mr. Trump speaking about so many things. We find his words and his acts a bit harsh many times, but at the end of the day, he's doing nothing wrong if you see it from American perspective. In the same way, right? India has always been, and India will always. When we'll join, for example, many of you will join Indian Foreign Services, and this is something that will that these IFS institutions will train you. They will train you to think, everything that you do as your professional life, the main priority should be national interest, right? And no sentiments are allowed in diplomatic world. It's a very paradoxical and it's a very harsh world of this diplomacy. And I want you guys to understand this thing, because it is very, very important for your geopolitical understanding. When we talk about a neighborhood, right? If I tell you now that as a diplomat, right? If you are Indian diplomat, or if you are selected for foreign service for as a foreign secretary of our country, right? Then Prime Minister will ask you to do everything that is possible to develop relationship with Pakistan, right? Then at that point of time, you cannot say that, no, I hate Pakistan and Pakistan has been bad with us and this and that. No, you have to do it. That's part of your job, right? You have to think big. So national interest, you have to think about national interest. That's what I'm trying to tell here, and that's the reason why I have repeated this thing with various different examples here. So Mr. Trump has said that we cannot let go this arms sales, these big deals that are going on between Saudi Arabia and USA. Yesterday I gave you some important information about Saudi Arabia and USA's relation. Remember, I told you that if you want to create some pressure, then this is the right time. If you want to stop war in Yemen, then this is the right time. Developed countries can do this thing, particularly UK and USA. But they will not, because arms sales is something that is creating jobs and bringing money, and so many things are associated with it. So they are going to be calculative here, and we get this statement from Mr. Trump. Now, one thing that you have to understand here, being very practical here, right? For a very long period of time, before independence as well, we have seen that these two teams, right, on the name of religion, they have tried to interfere in our country as well. Throughout the history, we find in our country that Sunni and Shias, they have lived peacefully in our country. But now we find, when I say now, before independence as well, but at present now we find this radicalization is going on, and successive governments of our country, we have ignored this thing when it comes to radicalizing sections of our Muslim community, and this has been supported by Saudis as well as Iranians. They have been doing this thing for a very long period of time now in our country, but we have been ignoring this thing. When I say we, I mean to say government of India, and I'm not talking about just Prime Minister Modi's government. This used to take place in Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government as well. This used to take place in Manmohan Singh's government as well. So it's not about any political party, Congress or BJP. It is about government of India, and we have been ignoring this sort of interference, or this a little bit of radicalization, or sending money to these organizations. Various some mosques. I'm not saying all the mosques. Some mosques are run by bad people, and these bad people are taking money, and then they are trying to radicalize our youngsters, saying this and that to them, teaching them all wrong things which you don't find in Quran or religion and things like that. So that's what they have, this vested interest. As I told you, it's religion is something that is more visible, but behind that you have this big agenda, because India is afraid a little bit, or was afraid that dependence on Western Asian countries on as far as energy is concerned. So if we become harsh on them, then they will create this trouble of lack of supply and things like that. Then the other thing is about this Kashmir issue. They can take side with Pakistan as well, in the name of they will take names of religion, and in the name of religion they will take side of Pakistan. But so because of this sort of things, we have been bit cautious when it comes to some wrongdoings by this West Asian countries. But the thing is, we have to understand now that Yemen war is going on, right? And they need big buyers as well. Like Saudi Arabia would need India, because India is a very thirsty country as far as this fuel is concerned. And for us, right, oil is important, and for them, buyer is important. So they are not going to be that harsh on us, right? Even if we are harsh on them, they are not going to throw back things on us, because they need us. If they want to continue and if they want to win this war, both Iran and Saudi Arabia needs India. Same thing goes for USA, France, and Russia, and other countries, right? They need us. We need their weapons, no doubt, but we are paying money. We are customer. Customer is the king, right? So if we want to exert pressure on these countries, then we can do it. We have this thing because we are thirsty in terms of defense items, in terms of oil. And national interest we are talking about, isn't it? So this is the thing. Our government is conscious about this advantage that India has. And I think this is one of the reasons why we are going ahead with, we will go ahead with, we have already went ahead with this Russia's S-400 missile defense system. When it comes to Iran, after a couple of weeks, we are going to see USA's sanctions, right, are going to be applicable. I think it's on November 6th of November is the deadline. So we are going to go ahead with oil purchase as well, because see here the statement of Mr. Trump. We have got this shade or this neck of USA that they are not going to, they are going to calculate other things as well. So they are supplying us, or they want to supply us arms, right, USA. So if we are going ahead with Iran, then they are going to look after their national interest, and that's what we should do as well. So I hope things are clear to you. We have discussed so many things, and as I told you, right, this article is an article that teaches us so many things. If you read it twice, thrice, then there are so many things you can think about, and really appreciate if you think about this sort of things, right, that on practical side of things, and what are the things that we should do, and what are the things that are going on in this region, all those things that we have discussed in past. You can take some points, close your eyes, and 5-10 minutes think about it, and you'll find this exercise very interesting, and then you will have a good grip on this topic as well of geopolitics. Now I find this picture in this international page, so I thought I should stick it for you guys here. So here we go. This is about USA Saudi ties, but trust me, it's not going to be that bad, right? If you calculate things, then it's not going to be that bad. This relationship will stay. A little bit of troubles are fine, but they are going to sort it out, I'm sure, because of national interest. And now we have this Taliban stung, right? Beg your pardon, it's a surge, not stung. So Taliban surge is about yesterday's or day before yesterday's attack that took place in Kandahar, and the person that you can see on your screen, his name is Abdul Razik. He was one of the most powerful figures in Afghan security force or apparatus, and he is no more. He is killed in this attack, and it's not just him. Last year, in this Kandahar governor's office, ambassador of UAE was killed as well. Members of parliament were killed. So Taliban is, trying to project, and it's not just trying to project, but indeed it is becoming more and more powerful, more and more aggressive in this part of the world, in Afghanistan. As you can see here, this red dots, or this red portion, is a portion where you find Taliban's stronghold in Afghanistan. So roughly speaking, some 45 to 50% of Afghanistan's territorial area is under the stronghold or direct control, or you can say Taliban is quite strong in this portion of Afghanistan. So it's a matter of concern. Now all these things are taking place, as you know, that 2 days ahead of a much delayed parliamentary election, and this is a matter of concern. This is also indicates this thing, that when it comes to USA, when it comes to Afghanistan forces, right, they are clueless. They don't know how to stop Taliban, and it's a very complicated thing that is going on. Here you have Pakistan, and then you have terror organizations. They have their own interest. Then you have this Saudi and other countries. They have their own interest. These teams, Shia Sunni teams as well. You have, when I say Shia Sunni, I'm more about political teams, not religious teams, right? So it's they have their own teams, and they have vested interest. So it's all mix and match here, and it's complicated as well. We have talked about this thing, so I don't think so I have to repeat all those things here again. But the best thing is wait and watch. There is hardly anything anyone can do about this thing at present. That's what it looks like. Now we have this keep the peace and these two articles. If you'll go through it yourself, you will find that they're just giving a sort of advice like this. Keep the peace is to be honest the best thing that can be done at present in this Sabrimala case is both the parties who are resisting this or who are against this Supreme Court's judgment on allowing women's entry in this shrine, people who are resisting it and people who are supporting it, right? They have to understand one thing, that whether they like it or not, whether it is against a religion or not, right, but it is at present law of the land, and we have to respect law of the land. If someone is breaching this thing, then they can face whatever procedure we have in our country. So this is something that we have to understand. The second point is, this is not the right time. This is not the right time to protest. This is not the right time to resist. This is the right time to create a consensus. This is the right time to look at this particular thing from socio-religious angle. And I think, right, with whatever little bit I know, I would suggest that both parties and sensible people, right, we don't need hooligans, we need most sensible people from both the sides should come forward. They should discuss this thing. They can discuss this whole thing from various different angles, from religion, from society, from women's angle, from law's angle, from Supreme Court and everything. They can have a thorough discussion. This will give a good time, and it will you can say pacify all these issues that are, all these protests that are going on. And once things are settled down, then we can talk about, we can take some necessary steps. So the best thing that can be that is practical at this point of time is this sensibility. But the question is, do we have them, or this is just a mythological mythological species? Do we really have sensible people? I think if we would have this sort of people, then we don't see this sort of issue. But when it comes to religion, when it comes to identity, it's very sad to learn this thing from or observe this thing, that we find people are fighting when it comes to religion. A thing that should create tranquility, peace in society. On that particular thing, people are fighting on the name of religion. So it's a sad thing. Statesmanship, not brinkmanship. This one is about Jammu and Kashmir. Now, recently local polls took place in Jammu and Kashmir, and the matter of concern is that 35.1% of voters turn out. So this indicates that voters are a bit frustrated with government as well as the entire system. One thing that we have to understand here, that if we go back in the history, I'm being very brief here in a nutshell, right? If we go back in the history of Jammu and Kashmir, then we find that things were all right, but it was in 1980s when we find this insurgency, growing in this. The insurgency's inception took place in 1980s, because at that point of time, Congress and Indira Gandhi and Abdullah, they were working with each other, but then they saw a bit of crack between their relationship, professional relationship, and then this vacuum was created, and this vacuum was fulfilled by this Iranian revolution inspired Kashmiri fundamentalists. So the things that are going on at present here, the government should understand that at present being aggressive here is not going to work, right? You have to apply both this strategy of carrots and sticks. You have to talk with sensible people, and you have to deal with the terrorists, and mix and match, and more hard work is required. We should stay away from any sort of statements or things that will create more troubles here. So that's everything. We have gone through all 4 articles. Now let's move on to news items. Very bad news coming from Amritsar. Near Amritsar, you have this Joda Phatak, and 61 people died. They were watching this, enjoying this Ravana effigy burning festival, or this celebration, and because of this firecracker noise and things like that, they were absolutely deaf about this a train approaching, and there were 2 trains arrived from opposite directions. So people were on this rail tracks, and because of this thing 61 has died, so many injured as well. And the sad thing, and the reason why we find this sort of incidents, is standard operating procedure. We have no respect at all for SOP, standard operating procedure. You have rules and regulations, right, of safety, health and safety, everything is there on book. But when it comes to local administration, we don't find this sort of strict implementation of standard operating procedure and health and safety. And one more thing I would like to add here, even now, right, even now, this horrific incident has took place here. Then as well, you find so many people, isn't it, they are on railway track. What will happen if a train comes out, right? Again stampede, and again more people will lose their lives. So this is the thing that I'm trying to highlight here, that we don't have any respect for standard operating procedure or health and safety. If we, until and unless we don't introduce this sort of sensitivity, we are not going to we are going to witness this sort of things. We are not going to stop this sort of incidents. Moving on to another item, it's about a student, is a lady, or a girl, not lady, but a girl was gang raped, and she is in a very critical situation at present. Let's pray for her, and it's very sad to hear this sort of news items. Then Ranil Vikramasinghe, he is here in our country, from Sri Lanka. He's here in India, and he had a meeting with Ajit Doval. He had a meeting with Rahul Gandhi today. He's going to meet Prime Minister. Fines have failed to deter stubble burning. Remember, I told you about this thing, that the fines, they don't work. You have to motivate farmers. You have to provide some sort of incentives. If they find there is something out there for them, then only they will take some step. This one is about a very important current affair. I believe you'll find articles or editorials on this thing. It's about this a crack, or this dams in this barrier breaches in Tibetan portion, and because of this thing we can see a flood situation in Assam, Arunachal Pradesh and Assam. You have the Siang River, very important river. Want to know more about it? Check out special video lecture that I delivered a couple of months ago, maybe 5-6 months ago, when this thing was in news. I can't remember, but I do remember important details. Siang River is one of the best river. It used to be one of the best river in the world as far as water quality is concerned. But because of this dam and construction activity that took place in China, this river is also getting polluted. RBI comes to aid of NBFC for injecting more liquidity. Then you have this Prime Minister panel. It's giving emphasis on research and development. You can, of course, download this PDF and go through these items. These are coming from Financial Paper. And MPC, that is Monetary Policy Committee, has released some, it has expressed some reasons, key sources behind this high inflation. These are your vocabs and yesterday's answers, right? What's going on? What's going on with this research topic? I know that person is Prime Minister of Canada. I'm not asking for just name of that person. It's just part of it. You have to provide other important information. Go through the Hindi version of this lecture and you will find an answer written by Khushbu Meshram. That student, this Khushbu, go through her answer. I would say that is a model answer for you guys. She has talked about a little bit of history, a little bit of geography. It's a very balanced answer. If you are ready to work like her, then do write your answer, or else we can stop this game if it's a waste of time for you guys. And if you are taking it as a waste of time, then it's a matter of concern as well, because this is part of your study. And in English version, if you go through Prashant Singh's answer, then that's the best answer that I can find. But when I compare both these answers, right, I find that you get, when you go through both the answers, Khushbu's answer and Prashant's answer, then you find that they have worked hard. They have done this research that is required. And if you are not curious enough, then this is not going to help you. Your preparation is going to be of that quality. I'm not doing it for myself, right? It is for you guys. So you have to understand the science behind this thing. I'm trying to train your mind, right? I'm not just trying to get some comments here. I don't need comments, right? I'm trying to train your mind here, right? It's for yourself, for your betterment. If you are not curious, if you are not training or de-learning those things that we have learned in our school, that everything is feeded to you, spoon feeding. those things have failed our nation. We don't need spoon feeding. We need curious minds that can do a little bit of research, and this is a thing that will help you with your preparation as well as your overall life management and your professional life as well. So think about it, right? And I'm not going to provide you questions till I get proper answer about Canada's prime minister or Canada as a country, and of course today is this France. I'm giving you name Franco Hollande, right? So I don't need the name of the country. I need more about that country, relationship between India and that country. These are the things I am expecting from you guys. So that's everything in today's discussion. Tomorrow's lectures will be delivered to you early because I'll be out. So lectures will be there early, somewhere around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. Tomorrow is Sunday. On regular Sundays, you get a little bit late. So enjoy your weekend. God bless you all, and think about the things that I have told you. Jai Hind.